Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant. I am Graham Houston Matthews, and for the entire summer of 2015, I'm breaking down every SummerSlam pay-per-view as seen in the WWE Network. Today is all about the 1991 installment as seen on the WWE Network. So I watched a show a couple days ago. My memory of it is not as fresh as it should be, so I don't remember all that much about these matches, but still it did make for an enjoyable event on the whole. So kicking off the show in six-man tag team action was the random trio of the British Bulldog, Ricky Steamboat, and the Texas Tornado teaming up to take on the trio of the Warlord and Power and Glory, otherwise known as Paul Roma and Hercules. Again, like I said, pretty well-wrestled, fun matchup to kick off the show. Not much substance behind it. They had the heels had the Warlord and Power and Glory had Slick in their corner. But other than that, though, it was a pretty fun matchup. I've always been a big Ricky Steamboat and British Bulldog fan. Texas Tornado in there. You throw him in there. I didn't even think he was still around in the company by this point. But still made for a pretty solid six-man tag team match to kick off the show with the baby faces going over. Again, nothing really much of note, but for what it was, I enjoyed it. Up next, the Intercontinental Championship, Bret Hart taking on the champion, Mr. Perfect, with the coach in his corner. This was easily the match of the night, in my opinion. I don't know how it wouldn't be for anyone else. You put two excellent in-ring technicians in there together, and you have yourself an instant classic. For whatever else, the Intercontinental Championship, which was largely defined at that point in time, the late 80s and early 90s, other than when the Warrior held it, but he went on to accomplish bigger and better things as WWE Champion, as the Workhorse Championship. And that was pretty much established in this contest between Hart and Mr. Perfect, two of the greatest wrestlers, not only at that time period, but of all time in the history of the WWE. So, of course, you put those guys in the ring together, you're going to have yourself an excellent submission-filled contest, and that's exactly what this was. And people were waiting on the edge of their seats to see Bret Hart win that championship, and thus he did, winning the Intercontinental Championship from Mr. Perfect. And they got a lot of good time, too. The longest match on this show by a country mile, getting 18 minutes, as it should have. My only real complaint was that although it kind of, kept the crowd engaged and lively early on in the show, it probably would have been better suited towards the end, because I thought it was, I don't know if the match or the feud was that big, or it warranted being later on the card, but the match was so great, I would have had no issue with it being, second to last or third to last over like the tag team title match and the other matches on the show, which were good, but to have this match, second on the card was kind of a crime considering how good it was compared to the other contests on this show. It's still excellent matchup as one would only expect from Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, and as I mentioned, Bret Hart is the new Intercontinental Champion coming out of this matchup. Up next, another fun tag team match pitting the Natural Disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon, against the Bushwhackers, Bushwhacker Luke and Bushwhacker Butch. So again, fun matchup, wasn't really meant to be anything, too special. It did mark, however, the final WWE televised appearance, I believe, of Andre the Giant. I was surprised he was even still in the company by this point. I thought his final match came the year prior. Because remember, this is 1991. Andre died in early January of 1993, so he was gone about not even a year and a half after this event concluded, following this show. So I was surprised he was still around. He was walking around with crutches. So again, why even bother throwing the guy out there if he's even unable to walk down to the ring? Like I talked about my 1990 review of SummerSlam, it was kind of hard just to watch him walk down to the ring, much less even wrestle. And I think it was a six-man tag team match at SummerSlam 1990. A lot like the Great Khali, just not in as bad of a shape. Or Khali was not nearly as bad of a shape as Andre. Andre was in his final few years of his lifetime, unfortunately. So it's kind of hard to see him on this show. I mean, it was cool to see him and all, but I feel like his involvement really was not all that necessary considering the state of his health at this period in time. But like I said before, it was noteworthy for being his final WWE televised appearance prior to his death in 1993. But other than that, though, I thought this was a fun match. Again, nothing, extremely well wrestled. I thought the six-man tag team match to kick off the show was a better wrestled matchup. But this was more fun than it was supposed to be great, so I thoroughly enjoyed it for what it was. Up next for the $1 Million Championship, Virgil contending for the gold against Ted DiBiase with Sensational Sherry in Ted DiBiase's corner. This is shortly after that Ted DiBiase and Virgil kind of parted ways. Virgil broke off on his own, became this breakout babyface for a time. It's not like he had a legendary legacy in WWE. The Lonely Virgil thing going on nowadays. He's not really all that well off, despite the success he had early on in his wrestling career. And I think breaking those two up was a huge mistake. I mean, you can always make the Riley and Miz comparisons, but at least like an Alex Riley had more of a future in wrestling in WWE. Although it didn't really pan out that way, he had more of a future in wrestling than Virgil did. Virgil didn't really, I mean, he was okay. It wasn't like he was terrible, but he really did not bring much to the table other than being an underdog babyface that people just wanted to cheer for. And I think it was more so people wanted to see DiBiase get beat than it was Virgil win the match. You know, I mean, when he came down to some generic-ass babyface music, and which is comical. I mean, the theme songs back in the day were great and all. You have some really classic themes for the Rougeau brothers, Warrior, Hogan, Savage, so on and so forth. Jake the Snake Roberts, the list goes on and on and on. Dusty Rhodes. And then you have this generic, you know, something like a theme that you would hear nowadays for like an NXT superstar or something, you know. Virgil comes out to that, so just screaming generic, but the match was pretty entertaining. I thought it was really good. And again, although the aftermath wasn't really there, nor did anyone really expect it to be, no one really thought Virgil was going to be like a breakout star or anything like that, the next world champion. It was a fun feud for what it was worth. People really wanted to rally behind Virgil because they wanted to see Ted DiBiase get his comeuppance. At one point, the match ended abruptly after a sensational Sherry caused a disqualification, causing DiBiase to retain his title. I believe the match was restarted, and Virgil came out victorious and winning the $1 Million Championship to a huge pop from the crowd. That was great to see. People loved the title change, and the match, again, not the most well-wrestled match in the world, but for what it was, considering the feud, considering who was involved in this story that was kind of a long time coming, people popped for it, they loved it, and I enjoyed it too, so I thought it was a fun little matchup that saw Virgil emerge victorious and become the new $1 Million Champion. Up next was Big Boss Man versus the Mountie in a jailhouse match where the loser would have to spend 24 hours in a New York City jail. Now, I remember watching this match. I don't know about the match, but I definitely watched what happened afterwards. The match was like, you know, pretty standard stuff, was nothing great. Just the stipulation, what was I found fun. You know, with them, the loser having to spend 24 hours in an NYC jail. And like I said, I did remember watching this match years ago, 08 or 09. They used to air these clips on MSG Classics every single Wednesday night, a great show. And of course, this show took place, emanated from MSG, Madison Square Garden, in New York City. So again, I don't remember if they showed the match itself, but I do remember watching the Mountie getting, you know, carted off to jail by the New York City police, and all the, you know, various clips of him throughout the night that they showed of him getting, you know, put through the process of getting jailed, and him spending time in the jail cell and almost getting harassed by the people in his cell. It was pretty great stuff. So I thought, you know, the match, while it was nothing great, the stipulation was pretty funny, fitting of the fun feud, and people enjoyed it. I loved it. You know, gave me, you know, brought back memories of me watching the MSG Classic show that would air on that channel, the MSG Network or whatever, years ago, back in 07 or 08, or I think 09 maybe. I think it was 2008, but brought back memories. But yeah, great stuff there. The match was nothing to note, but I thought the post-match stuff with the jailhouse, the jailhouse match stipulation was pretty unique, and I found it pretty funny as well. Up next, the WWF Tag Team titles. We had the Legion of Doom contending for the gold against the Nasty Boys in a street fight tag team match. Now, what's pretty funny about this match is that I watched the Nasty Boys in Demolition a couple weeks ago at Legends of Wrestling in New York City, you know, coincidentally enough, at Citi Field at Met Stadium, and it was the Nasty Boys getting involved with Demolition. And of course, Demolition was not on this show, or at least I don't think they were. Legion of Doom was involved here, but still, and that was a street fight tag team match. I believe it was the Nasty Boys versus like the Aces and Eights or something like that. Fast forward, you know, 25 years later, it's crazy to think how far back the show was, but yeah, the match was pretty fun for what it was. I've never been a huge Nasty Boys fan. They were never the greatest wrestlers in the world, but Legion of Doom being as over as they were, it was a cool moment when they won back the belts for a street fight tag team match. I mean, it was cool to see something out of the ordinary other than a standard tag team match, but it would have been nice if they got more time or put more emphasis on the stipulation. They really didn't do much other than just kind of not abide by the rules. It's not like they went all hardcore, all out like in 2015 on the indie scene or something like that. This is more of a, you know, no rope breaks, no countouts and disqualifications, stuff like that, but still made for a cool moment at the end with the Legion of Doom winning back the tag team championships. Second to last match saw IRS taking on Greg Valentine in a 7-minute match. Really don't honestly remember much about it. It was fine for what it was. Pretty standard match. They had the same thing the year before too. I remember talking about it. The match before the main event, kind of like a buffer match. This was kind of much of the same. Really no storyline significance, just kind of a match. And like I said, IRS going over, so that was about that. And then we get to the main event, a tag team match with Sid Justice serving as the special guest referee. It was Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior taking on Sergeant Slaughter, Cole Mustafa, and General Adon. So a handicap match, a tag team match, handicap, whatever, 2-on-3 handicap match. And, again, it was enjoyable for what it was. It was kind of going off the whole Gulf War stuff, everything that was going on at that period in time, with Sergeant Slaughter as the heel. That was the year they were building to Hogan and Slaughter, I believe, at WrestleMania 9 the following year. This was 91, so this was WrestleMania 7, which they did Sid, or what did they do that year? At WrestleMania 7, I believe they did Hogan and, was it Hogan and Slaughter that year? I can't remember, honestly. I believe it was Hogan and Slaughter at WrestleMania 7, and then Hogan and Justice at WrestleMania 8. That's what I think it was. Now, this match was kind of building towards that. Justice was kind of impartial, saying I wouldn't side with them or the babyfaces or whoever. I'm just going to go out on my own. So this was kind of planting the seeds for that match between Justice and Hogan at the WrestleMania main event, the WrestleMania main event later on, a couple months later at WrestleMania 8. This is kind of going off Hogan's feud with Sergeant Slaughter from WrestleMania of that year. And again, pretty solid tag team match. People were so behind Sergeant Slaughter, not behind, but he was so over as a heel. They hated him so much. It was a great gimmick, kind of capitalizing off what was going on at that period in time in the world. So it was kind of a great tie into the pop culture that WWE likes to incorporate into a lot of their storylines and character development for a lot of their guys, including Sergeant Slaughter, back in 1991. So again, solid handicap match. You had to know that Hogan and Warrior were going to come out victorious despite going up against the odds and stuff like that. The interesting part about this match is that if you watched Warrior's documentary, I know they talked about it in his first DVD that was released 10 years ago, the Self-Destruction of the Warrior DVD, the most recent DVD, I think it's in the most recent DVD where they talk about it, the Always Believe disc collection, where they talked about how he walked out on WWE This Night, or he got fired by Vince McMahon, how he held him up for a bunch of money, and they weren't going to pay him. I think Vince ended up paying him before the match, and he almost had Hogan and someone else go out and break his legs, or whatever the hell happened. And then Warrior, who did not even finish the match, I believe he chased off Mustafa or Adon, or someone he chased off, through the curtain, and as soon as he ran through that curtain, I believe he was given his papers, his walking papers, and he was out of there. So, kind of a controversial fashion, which Warrior left. He would not be back until WrestleMania 8 the following year, in which, interestingly enough, he would save Hogan after his match with Sid Justice, who was the special guest referee for this match. So he wasn't even able to celebrate his victory with Hogan on this show. He ran out that curtain with whoever, and that was the last we saw of Ultimate Warrior for many months, and out instead, Hogan, while he was celebrating after he won the match for his team, he invited, Sid Justice to come back out to the ring, and they celebrated together, and that pretty much what was closed the show. Hogan winning the match for his team, him and Warrior picking up the victory, but it was Hogan who did most of the work, and him and Justice celebrating to close the show, like I said before, planting the seeds for their WrestleMania 8 match many months later. And on the whole, that was WrestleMania 91. I thought it was a fun show. I mean, looking at the show on paper, you wouldn't really think so. It didn't really look like a great show. I was kind of half paying attention while I was watching the show a couple days ago. It was like, midnight or something when I was watching it. But, all in all, I thought it was a pretty fun show. Not a great show, but entertaining for what it was. The six-man tag team match was really fun and well-wrestled match to kick off the show. Hart and Mr. Perfect, easily the match of the night. If there's one match from this show you should go out of your way to watch, it's the Intercontinental title match between Hart and Perfect. The Natural Disasters versus Bushwhackers match was fine for what it was. Virgil and DiBiase, another angle/match that I enjoyed quite thoroughly, honestly. I thought it was actually pretty good the way they executed it in the moment of Virgil winning the $1 million championship. The tag team titles changing hands was another pretty cool moment as well. The Jailhouse match was fun. The IRS versus Greg Valentine match, like I said before, was really nothing of note, but the main event was also solid / enjoyable as well. So yeah, pretty fun, enjoyable show. Make sure to check it out on the WWE Network. Make sure to check it out on the WWE Network before SummerSlam 2015 in just 61 more days, which I will be in attendance for this August. Cannot wait for it. But in the meantime, and in between time, folks, make sure to catch me on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Follow me on Twitter at WrestleRant. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. I'll be back on Saturday with my review of SummerSlam 1992 live from London, from England. It's going to be a great show. Looking forward to watching that back on the WWE Network this week. So in the meantime, folks, have a great week, and I'll catch you guys right back here on Saturday.